Hey, everybody, welcome to Love and Relo, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I'm so blessed and honored to be here today with a very special guest, the world famous, one of my entrepreneurial icons and people that I've looked up to for probably 15 years. I mean, this goes back to I was working in a call center at Pods down in Clearwater, Florida, when Nick and his partner were getting started. I mean, I've been looking up to these guys for a decade and a half, and to have him on the show today is incredible. We've got Nick Friedman, the co-founder of College H.U.N.K.S, hauling junk and moving, on with us today. Nick, how are you doing?
I'm doing awesome, man. Thank you for the opportunity to reconnect here.
Dude, this is such a special day for me because in a way, this is also, it's about you, but it's also about me because I've been watching what you and Omar Solomon, your partner, have been doing. Can't wait to hear about your story and how you came up with this, frankly, iconic brand in the moving industry and the power of building that brand and how you built this company. And I want to hear about it from the beginning. I want to hear about all the things you've learned. I've got some stories. I want to hear your stories. And I can't wait to get into this. And I can't thank you enough for being here. I got to ask you first question. You were on Shark Tank season 1, episode 1. You're on Love and Relo today. How would you rank them?
Oh, you got to rank Love and Relo, ahead of Shark Tank. That was 15 years ago. So that, I hadn't even met you yet. I don't think.
Mr. Wonderful, Mr. Mediocre. I mean, I don't know how you really rank them, man. But Nick, you're so humble, man, and you're so cool with your time, and you always hit me back when I text you and everything. And I just have so much respect for people like you who have made it kind of to the top in many ways, but always have time to kind of look back and kind of be there for others. So I really appreciate that, Nick. I respect it so much.
Yeah, no, likewise, mutually respect everything you've done and the niche you've carved out in this space. And it's not easy. We know that if it were, everybody would do it, but it's pretty cool to have watched your journey as well. So it's cool to be reconnecting this way for sure.
Yeah, thank you so much. And get in the comments right now. If you're watching that out here, get in there, hit that like button. Let us know you're out there. Get in here. If you've got questions for Nick about the College H.U.N.K.S brand and everything that they built or kind of what they're doing now and where do they see the growth, I want to talk all about it. We've got Cliff Bierman checking in. Where you at, Cliff? You in Atlanta right now? Where you at? Great. Yeah. Hey, looking forward to Hey, good to see you, Cliff. Always good to see you. This is great. We got people checking in. My dad's checking in. Hey, what's up, Dad? How you doing? Dan Cross in Tulsa. Real quick, Nick, get into it. People have heard of your brand, but how did it start?
Yeah, probably like you, we didn't grow up saying we want to be in the moving industry when we become adults. And we were in college getting ready for our senior year. We were home for summer vacation, just looking for something to do. And my best friend from high school, Omar, who you mentioned, his mom actually had a beat up cargo van from her furniture store. And so she was like, why don't you guys go do something with the van? You can move people's furniture around, haul people's junk away. And then she looked us, kind of up and down, paused, and she goes, you guys could be college hunks who haul junk. And we just kind of laughed about it, thought it was funny at first. And then we kind of realized, that's not what people typically associate with moving or junk hauling. So just made some computer printout flyers, stuck it in mailboxes. And that was the first light bulb moment for me where I realized people had a need for the service. They thought the name was catchy. It wasn't something that we had been taught in school or that we were particularly passionate about, but I found that we were enjoying the process of being creative and delivering a service that people needed. Went back to school, we graduated, and then decided to make it a full year-round venture. And I always tell the story. We went out and bought a 1-800 number to try to make ourselves look big, even though we just had the one truck. We put it on the back of the truck. It was still routed to our cell phone. So anytime people would call to complain about erratic driving, I'd be in the driver's seat answering the phone, pretending like I was back in the office saying, oh, yeah, we'll fire those guys when they get back to the office. Thanks for reporting that to us. So we were doing it all ourselves at the beginning, hauling the furniture, driving the trucks, answering the phones, trying to scribble down notes in an Excel sheet or on a notepad. And, it wasn't until we learned how to eventually work on the business, not just in the business, did this concept of scaling and ultimately franchising come about. So, I describe ourselves as a 20-year overnight success. Today, we've got over 200 franchise locations around the country, 300 million annual sales. So a far cry from where we were with that beat up cargo van, but it's been a fun journey and we're just getting started. We keep telling ourselves that.
I love it. Absolutely unreal. Hit that like button, get in the comments. If you got questions for Nick Friedman, co-founder of College H.U.N.K.S, hauling junk and moving. we got people coming in here checking in. Christian saying, "Go mom." Shout out to mom for the vision.
We've honored her. Unfortunately, Omar's mom passed away about 2 years ago. We lost her to cancer, but we continue to honor her legacy because it's just a little spark of encouragement and perhaps creativity that can start down a path that can really change people's lives, because now we've got, as I mentioned, 200 franchise owners who call this their career, their business, and thousands of employees. H.U.N.K.S, which we say stands for honest, uniform, nice, knowledgeable service. So it's become a more broad definition of the term H.U.N.K. But if it wasn't for Omar's mom's encouragement to take that cargo van and sort of her creativity, tongue-in-cheek playfulness that gave us the confidence and the belief to go get it, we wouldn't be sitting here talking right now. I'd be in a cubicle somewhere crunching numbers probably.
Dude, I love it. I'm a big fan of one of the best gifts you can give somebody is to believe in them. And that's what you're talking about with Omar's mom and much love. And
that's absolutely right. That belief and encouragement and, willingness, because entrepreneurship back then, wasn't as common as it is today, right? The shows like Shark Tank didn't exist, where it was something that a path that people could pursue, and there weren't Instagram channels or podcasts like this dedicated.
Gary V wasn't out there, those types of it's a whole thing now. The gig economy, right. Everybody's got 3 side hustles and driving Uber, and then they got a cargo van somewhere, and they're doing it based off guys like you, though, that have shown us the pathway and have kind of built this thing and developed this thing in the public eye so that we can kind of watch you and done a phenomenal job of getting the press out there too. I got so many questions today. Did you always think big though? You talked about getting that 1-800 number early on. Were you always thinking like growth, scale, big?
Yes, I would say we always had big ambitions, big dreams, lofty goals. We didn't want to be just the two of us driving around in a beat up cargo van forever. We knew that's how we had to start, but we always had this vision of having, our bright orange and green trucks in markets across the country. And it's kind of crazy and gives me goosebumps to this day when people will send me a text message with a picture of our truck in some random, city in another state. And my reply back is always, hey, when you see that truck, all is well in the world. Because that's really what we want the truck to represent is, positivity and entrepreneurship and ingenuity and everything else that our brand stands for. So it's been, like I said, a 20-year overnight success. But that entrepreneurial journey has to start with the first step.
Yeah. So many more questions here. We got people checking in here. We got Travis checking in. We got Christian, Cliff, Jill. What's up, Jill? Checking in here. Hey, Nick, excited to learn more about you. Hit that like button. Get in the comments. I want to hear your questions. Christian says, why the name? You talk a little bit about how the name started, but have you ever thought of changing the name? Or did you always just want to ride with that brand? What's your thoughts on building that brand and the choice of a name? Because it's not a name that everyone would pick. I've worked for a lot of movie companies. They always pick these very we are A1 movers and you're the, best, most, they always have these very vague names that you never remember. And talk about the name choice.
Yeah. So Omar's mom, I don't think she was really branding us when she looked us up and down and said, you guys could be the, college hunks who haul junk. She was using it literally at the time. We were in college. She was, like any mom would do, call her son and her son's friend a hunk, and it rhymed. But then we realized it was kind of a pattern interrupt. Just like you said, it's not what typically people associate with movers or haulers. It's kind of a clean cut, crisp image. It's playful. It's tongue in cheek. It's a conversation starter. And of course, even to this day, we still have to answer the question that people ask, hey, are they all really in college? Or, hey, are they all have to be hunky? And so that's actually what led us to create that acronym for H.U.N.K.S, which again stands for honest, uniform, nice, knowledgeable service. That's become our brand promise that we deliver. That's what clients can expect when we show up. And then, of course, the college component, that's just sort of a nod to our heritage. The fact that we started in college, building leaders is one of our core values. So we think of our organization like a school for the front line that comes in and is a part of it. And I will tell you, we did have kind of a brand identity crisis in probably 2012 timeframe. We were just getting off the ground as a franchise organization. We were just coming out of the housing market downturn, and we were questioning ourselves. We were like, is the name going to be limiting? Is it going to, turn people away? Do they think it's, sounds unprofessional, or do they think we're going to be, just a bunch of, ragtag college kids showing up and not buttoned up and able to do the jobs that people are expecting us to do? So we did a whole brand study. We did research. We talked to our mentors, and we really contemplated changing the name. But one of my mentors pulled me aside. He said, "Look, Nick, the market has already embraced the name. You've been on Shark Tank. You've sold 20 franchises. You've made, several million in revenue, at least top line. So the market has adopted the name, and the market has spoken. You don't know what the market is going to do if you change the name. It could be a better situation, or it could be worse, but it's very expensive to test out. So, you've caught this lightning in the bottle with a name that's a pattern interrupt." And right around the time I'd read the book Purple Cow by Seth Godin, and in the book he says, if you're driving down a country road and you see a bunch of brown cows on the side of the road, in the field, you keep driving, you've seen that before. But if there's a purple cow sitting there, that's when people are going to pull over, yes, put it on social media, talk about it at the dinner table. And really what that means is standing out in a crowded space. And of course, we know the moving industry is a crowded industry. And so we wanted to stand out with the name, with the bright orange and green trucks, the colors. And ultimately we realized that was the sizzle. That's what, made people look twice or talk about it or ask questions about it. But we also needed the steak, which is our service, our culture, our client approach, and how we operate the business. And so you need to stand out and be different. I think not just with the image, which has been a critical piece to our differentiation, but ultimately with the client experience. And I think those two pieces have been the keys to our sustained growth over the years.
It's such a great point. I love the fact that you lean into this and you own this, right? And you embrace this as a pattern interrupt. I can tell that's part of your narrative too, when you talk about your branding and everything, because you're right. When I talk to our clients, I talk to our corporate clients out there, they buy hundreds, thousands of moves a year. The biggest clients in the moving space that spend even $3 billion a year, the U.S. military, they all complain about one thing. There's a lot of sameness out there. No one can differentiate between all these van lines. They all win their awards. They've all got their acrylic statues at the conference, right? But nobody can tell them apart. They're all red, white, and blue in some different variety, right? And none of them stand apart. And I love that you're like, we'd rather stand out. And maybe some people don't get down with the brand. That's fine. But people can drown themselves in a sea of sameness, trying to be everything to everybody. And it's so much better to be talked about. It's so hard to get those eyeballs. And y'all have done such a phenomenal job getting eyeballs. And I think the second most impressive thing than the fact that you had the courage to lean into this brand that was quirky, right? But you understood the value of it. The second most impressive thing, y'all are marketing geniuses. You guys have gotten on more TV shows. Okay. And I love it. And it never gets old. Every time I'm just flipping through my wife, watching HGTV or watching Oprah or watching Shark Tank and I just see you and Omar pop up again. And I'm like, there they are again. And it never gets old. And I take such pride in them. I know this guy. She's like, you don't know that. I'm like, I know that guy. He may not remember. I know him though. And it's just amazing. How do you guys get so many opportunities? I got one guy, Travis, is saying, I didn't even know this. I don't know if he's being funny, but were you on Below Deck?
We were on Below Deck. That's one of the little known shows that I was on as well, wearing this exact same button-down shirt, always branding, another one of our core values. So, to answer your question, I think always branding was something that we always recognized was critical, whether it's parking the trucks in visible locations, whether it's getting, local media attention, or as soon as the door opened for potential national media attention, we jumped on that because we're a consumer brand. And so at the end of the day, we need people to recognize us, to create some name recognition, to create some awareness. Maybe they don't remember us, but when they're doing a Google search and our name pops up, there's some reconnaissance from having seen us on one of those programs that you mentioned. And so it's always been, some people call us, shameless promoters, or maybe even, publicity chasers or whatever. But I view it as savvy marketing at the end of the day, because you want to be, if you're not going to promote your brand, who is? If you can't leverage, mainstream media, leverage social media. If you can't leverage social media, leverage grassroots marketing and networking. And so the Shark Tank opportunity was certainly our first foray into reality television. Like you said, episode 1, season 1. from there, we actually went on. We were both single at the time. We went on a dating show on Bravo called
that's right.
called Millionaire Matchmaker, and Omar picked his date up in one of our trucks to go clean out a garage. So
yes, and he showed up in the garage, and he's like, I need a girl that can, if it comes down to it, she's got to be able to clean some junk out of this.
Yeah. So horrible date idea, great television. If memes existed back then, it would have been a total meme on social media for sure. And that actually just got re-released on Netflix apparently. So kind of the gift that keeps on giving, and that having been on Bravo led to the Below Deck opportunity, and then my wife and I were buying a house, and that led to the HGTV House Hunters opportunity. So, we always had our antennas up for opportunities to showcase the brand, and whether that's a media interview, like I said, reality TV, which happened to, present a lot of opportunities, from the 2010 to the 2020 timeframe decade. We took advantage of it. And some of it was just sort of organic. It fell in our lap. Some of it, we saw an ad. That's how Shark Tank came about. We saw an ad in Entrepreneur Magazine that said, looking for business owners to pitch a business idea for a pilot TV show. And so we said, hey, we're trying to go national. We've got a few franchises on our organization. Why don't we pitch this concept? And actually, small side note, we didn't go on originally pitching College H.U.N.K.S hauling junk. We sent in a video pitch. We were going to start College Foxes packing boxes.
Packing boxes. I saw this. I saw this with the Volkswagen Beetle bugs. That's right.
Yeah, that was going to be our sister concept. Yes. Again, not a great business idea, but great make for great television. Mr. Wonderful, was out very quickly. I think I didn't realize, that was his shtick, but I think I thanked him and asked if that meant he got to stop talking, because I thought he was negatively influencing the other sharks. We ultimately got an offer from Robert Herjavec for, he was saying like, hey, we'll do 50-50 on the Foxes idea, but give me 10% of your College H.U.N.K.S business as collateral. So it was probably a fair offer at the time. We turned it down because, we didn't know these guys were going to turn into television celebrities, right? The show's still on 15 years later. These guys at the time to us were business executives, kind of intimidating. Mark Cuban wasn't on the show yet, so it wasn't like there was any mainstream awareness of who these guys were, or that the show was going to become as popular as it did.
Was Damon John on there at that
He
point?
Was, yes.
Okay, yep. So Boo Boo was on there. So do you remember the offer though? He wanted 50% of College Foxes.
Yes, and he wanted 10% of H.U.N.K.S, and I think he offered $250,000 for it. So that would have been about $2.5 million valuation, which again back then probably wasn't a horrible offer. If I'm being honest, he would have 100 times his investment had we accepted it. So I'm not upset that we didn't take it at this point, just because we made it to the other side without him. But a lot of people will ask me, hey, do you wish you took the offer? And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe it would have gotten jumbled up if we were, had a partner that early. Yeah.
Wow. So cool. I wanted just to kind of cap off the branding and the publicity, for 1 second though. What advice? You're right. Entrepreneurship has just exploded, right? Everybody's got to, I started my business 4 years ago, and here we are. A lot of folks don't make it that long, So some people never hit the $1 million mark. I'm in EO, and we talk about that. I know you're on the YPO board, I think, as well, right? So we talk about that. But from a branding standpoint, what advice would you give people? Maybe what are some mistakes that you see people make? I'm sure you mentor a lot of people. What are your thoughts on branding?
I just think branding has to become sort of ingrained in your DNA as the entrepreneur, and then ingrained in the DNA of your team members, especially the early ones that you bring into the organization. Everybody in the organization is the brand. Walking, talking, reflection of the brand. So how they conduct themselves, how they comport themselves, how they interact with each other, with the, their external prospects and clients. It's all branding. And, for us, obviously we're a consumer brand, so we've got to be a little bit more out there in the public eye with our, bright orange trucks, with our uniforms. And at the end of the day, our product that we're selling is our frontline team members, our H.U.N.K.S. And so it's so critical that we explain to them the significance of what branding means. And it's more than just wearing the uniform or putting out a sign or a door hanger. It's being a walking, talking billboard. And we say, always be TV ready. Always imagine that, Oprah's following you with the camera or in 60 Minutes, because, this day and age, everybody is following you with the camera, whether you're doing something good, bad, or just, neutral. You've got to be on your best reflection of what the brand represents. And so I think that's what it means. I heard, recently, a brand doesn't make a company makes the brand. And I think that's true. And ultimately, what that means is, what the company stands for, the culture, the values, the purpose, ultimately creates the impression and the experience that people have interacting with it. And that's what creates the emotional connection that people have with it when they see it out on the road. And that's why when I tell our franchise owners and our staff, what is it that we really want College H.U.N.K.S to stand for as a brand? You mentioned it earlier, which it was, an honor for you to use the word iconic. We want to be thought of as an iconic brand. And we can only do that if we're doing the right things consistently at the right times, so that, like I said earlier, when people see the truck, they feel like it represents what's right in the world, because there's so much other negativity that happens. We want to be something that stands for positivity and reflects that into the communities we work in.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I got to think, just being honest here, as everyone who watches this knows, get in the comments also, ask your questions. And Nick here, we got people checking in. I see you, Mark, see you, Christian. We got questions coming up here. I got to think though, when we look at awareness, in the moving industry, brand awareness, I got to think that College H.U.N.K.S is probably definitely a top 5 most recognizable brand in the space. I'm sure you've done studies on this. Do you know where you guys come with that?
Certainly it's market specific, right? Where we have franchise owners that have a strong, operation, strong footprint. I can tell if I go to a market, like a Tampa or a, Long Island, New York, where we just got, a lot of brand presence and a lot of operating history. 9 times out of 10, if I tell somebody that I'm, one of the founders of College H.U.N.K.S, they kind of light up because they've heard the story or they've seen the trucks or they've interacted with it in some form or fashion. Where we don't have as much presence, for example, let's say out in the West Coast, it's going to be really market city by city specific. Probably 9 times out of 10, some folks haven't heard of us if they haven't interacted with us or haven't happened to catch one of our national TV shows or something like that we've been on, just because we don't have as much presence or concentration. In part of our journey to become an iconic brand, we want to be omnipresent in every market. That's one of the reasons we went the franchise route, to be able to expand into other markets, leverage the ownership of our franchise partners, and bring in the College H.U.N.K.S flag into the communities all across the U.S. So we're starting to build out that West Coast presence as well, and we'll see that continue to compound on itself, we think.
I think you're doing a phenomenal job. I looked in Dallas. I did a quick Google search before the show. I think you got 6 or 8 locations in the DFW.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great example. We've really, created some great density and saturation. And, we say nothing gets the trucks on the road like the trucks on the road. And so, if we don't have a presence in the community of vehicles that people see, because oftentimes if people, initially say that I haven't heard of College H.U.N.K.S, I'm not sure. I'm like, have you ever seen the orange and green trucks? And then that usually triggers something that they've seen that drive by, or they've seen it parked in the, gas station or something along those lines.
Yeah, very cool. We got questions coming up here. Get in the comments here. Hit that like button. Let us know what you're thinking out there. We've got okay. We'll answer these in order here. We got Christian. Said, Nick, what were the biggest obstacles in your 20 years?
Oh, there's been a few. I think for us, we didn't even realize it was an obstacle. But when we started franchising, this was in 2008 timeframe. So if you were going to choose a home service franchise, timing
in Florida, by the way, too. You guys are headquartered in Tampa, because I was at a call center in Tampa working for Pods, and those phones had trouble ringing in 08. I tell you what.
That's right. So that was a massive headwind coming out of the gates for us. We were all excited. Hey, all you got to do is, put a sign out and the phone's going to start ringing. And then all of a sudden, with the housing market crash. So I think that forced us, quite frankly, to become really resilient, gritty, and exercise our persistence and perseverance muscles, which are sort of those intangibles of entrepreneurship that you always hear talked about when they're like, hey, are entrepreneurs made or are they born? And I think, had we started with a bunch of tailwinds, we might not have known what the heck to do when things got tough in our face. And so I view that as a actual blessing in disguise, because we were forced to try to figure it out and try to make it work. So there were some dark times during those moments, because we weren't sure if we were going to make it. And that's, I think, Ben, when we first reached out to Christine at Pods, your previous boss, who was the chief marketing officer there, and started trying to surround ourselves with mentors to help guide us. That's when we started adding moving services as well, because when we first started out, we were trying to hyper focus on the junk removal. And so, that was certainly an obstacle to overcome. COVID, obviously, for every business owner was an obstacle just because it was so unprecedented. We didn't know how to deal with it. It was such sort of like this whiplash effect of, we're moving along, and it's like somebody just slammed on the brakes of our business. And then coming out of COVID, it was like somebody just pressed on the gas immediately. So we just kind of got this whiplash effect.
Yeah.
Of course,
just
now,
slingshot right out.
That's right. And of course, now we've got, high interest rate climates. Things are, the housing market isn't booming like it was 2 years ago. And so, we've just got to be resilient, tactful, and strategic, and not get ahead of our skis to the point where we can't make in-game adjustments.
Yeah, man. But I love what you're saying, though, because you've done that, but you've done that before, right? They say tough times make tough people, right? And you see, look at businesses that are formed in tough times. They do very well long-term. Businesses that are formed in boom times, they struggle because they don't know how to get scrappy, and you guys got that scrappy in your DNA. I mean, like going back to Omar showing up with his date, it's like, yo, we might all have to go pick up some junk today,
That's right.
we have to, right? You never want to lose that muscle.
I think back to that 2008 timeframe, we literally started knocking on doors with our junk truck saying, hey, we've got our truck here. Do you want it? Do you have anything you need to get rid of today? We were going door to door, just trying to drum up business and asking our franchise owners to do the same. So yeah, it wasn't fun, but we felt like we had no other choice if we were going to keep this thing moving forward. Another quote, similar to the tough times quote you just shared is, smooth seas never made a strong sailor, right? And so if you're out on a smooth day and a windy day when the wind's at your back, you think it's easy and everybody can win in those situations, but right now we got to get so much more diligent. Every lead matters. Conversion percentage is critical. Customer service and referrals is so critical. You can't just, spend money on Google and the leads aren't raining into your lap like they were 2-3 years ago.
Yep.
And so we've got to be much more strategic and tactful so then when the market and the winds do turn, we're that much better at executing the day to day.
Yeah, and the fact that with fewer people moving right now, we're going to get to all your questions. Keep them coming here. We got Steve Weidekamp, actually the president of California Movers Association, here in the comments. We got a bunch of people checking in here. This is awesome, guys. We're going to get to all your questions. I promise you that. But when you look at fewer people moving, inventory's down, things aren't moving. If you're playing that Google, AdWord or keyword game, with less inventory, that means the price per click is going to go way up. So that's why, it's got to be so important. It's got to be a huge blessing that you've invested so much in your brand recognition, your organic search, people that are actually checking for you, looking for you out there. I see your signs in every median. Y'all are out there really hustling, getting the name out there. And that's got to be a real boon for you right now.
Yeah. Another quote I love, Warren Buffett. He said, when the tide goes out, you see who's been swimming naked. And so, we've kind of prided ourselves on always having this foundation of culture, purpose, values, and making smart data-based decisions with our operation. And so, yeah, that bottom of the funnel, Google, direct response, it's tough right now, costs more. I think lead volume and searches for our industry are down like 20-30%. I was researching. So you've got to be scrappy and again, reaching out to your past clients, reaching out to your every lead that comes through and being that much more diligent. And that's, honestly affecting every industry related to moving and real estate. I actually recently researched a potential refi. And I think I get 10 phone calls a day from, wherever my phone number got sent. And these mortgage, folks are hurting just as much. And they're banging the phones trying to get that one lead to convert. And so I get it. It's, it's going to create, some scrappiness required.
Yeah, love it. All right, we're going to keep talking here. We got a bunch of questions coming in. We're going to answer them in order. So keep them coming here. Mark says, Nick, have you become a supplier partner to any RMCs, relocation management companies on the corporate side? If so, how is that process going?
So short answer is not yet. We are just now sort of expanding our capabilities into the long distance space and the relocation space. And it wasn't quite until I'd say the past 2 years where we really had a national footprint, where we had the capability to be a provider on a national basis. We now have what we call NASA, National Accounts and Strategic Alliances department that's dedicated to these types of approaches, similar to what Ben, you were doing in your prior roles with, pods and pack rep, for example. And so short answer is I don't have a great answer for you on becoming that supplier partner, but with what we've done with some of our other national accounts unrelated to RMCs is just simply present our solutions that we can offer as a one-stop national platform with a national network with a single point of contact for billing, booking, customer service and dispatch and then obviously a single consistent method at which we deliver the service is been attractive to some of our national partners that we've been able to start building relationships with.
Yeah. And Mark, when I look at the footprint and the capability, Nick, you said you had 300 how many locations you got, Nick?
About 250.
250.
Yep.
So when you look at 250, I mean, that's got to put you up there and probably the, I don't know, probably top 5, top 7, probably moving companies from just a sheer locations number, in the country. So, I mean, that is a sizable footprint. Now, Mark, I will say, they are more localized at this present moment, but now you have dots on the map. So now connecting those dots actually becomes easier than putting them on the map in the first place. So, I mean, I think there's a real capability and opportunity there. I'm about to make a move, Nick. Actually, I'm about to close on a house in like 8 days. And my wife's like, you need to call, College H.U.N.K.S to get this junk out of the garage. And I'm like, and it's true. I got to think that everybody that's moving out of these, big old houses, we got a whole lot of stuff in our garage. I got 2 car seats I'm not going to use. I got 3 strollers I'm not going to, I've got all the sports equipment. I got all this stuff, unfortunately, that I'm not going to use, and it's got to go. Things like car seats, frankly, you can't even resell them, right? So it's like, so she's like, you got to call these folks. And I'm like, this should be this could easily be a part of every relocation package, the downsizing before the move. Because once you move it, how many times have movers moved a box that has 1, 2, 3 other stickers? They're moving boxes that have never been opened. And at some point we got to downsize because people are, unfortunately, they're dying. They're downsizing into a home at some point in their in their life. And now all this junk gets passed down to their kids, and we ain't got no room for it. So, Mark, I think there's a unique value prop for College H.U.N.K.S to explore the RMC market. Nick, we talk about that offline. I got some ideas for you.
Awesome.
Steve Whitecamp says, "Hey, Steve, what's up? Hope you're doing well out there. Drink any good wine lately?" Steve's a onophile out there. Steve says companies, also the president of California Movers and Storage Association, says companies with similar names and models have run into challenges with the EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, maybe?
Yep.
Is this an issue on your radar or in your training and employment development?
Yeah, Steve, I'm definitely familiar with, unfortunately, the challenges that our colleagues out in California have run into, and empathize, compassionate about that, that challenge that they faced. Absolutely, we're definitely, make it very clear we're an equal employment organization, opportunity organization. We make it very clear that, the H.U.N.K.S in our brand name is the acronym honest, uniform, nice, knowledgeable service. The college is a nod to our heritage as to how we got started in college, but definitely not a qualifier or disqualifier for who we're hiring. And so we make it very clear with the training of our franchise owners, with the training of our HR team, that hiring is who's the best man, woman, guy or gal for the job and the position that we're hiring for. Having nothing to do with, age, gender, or anything else. And so I think it's, important in our industry in particular that we're mindful of that, whether it's in your name or brand or just simply in how you operate the business, because, organizations that are out there to, protect the protected classes, they're out there for a reason, to protect those that may be disqualified against or people that may be, not given an opportunity. And so we want to be mindful of that as well. And so I think that's really important for any business. And we very mindful of that as well.
Appreciate the question, Steve. Thanks so much. Appreciate you answering it too, Nick. Cliff Bierman says, so what does the future look like for College H.U.N.K.S? What do you see as your growth opportunities besides different regions?
Yeah, so our vision is to really become that iconic brand, known for our service, our culture, our community involvement. And we think we've got a great opportunity to get to 300-400 franchise locations in call it the next 3 to 5 years. We want each of our franchise locations to be averaging $3 to $5 million in top line revenue, at least. And my long-term vision is to have each of our franchise owners become millionaires, by being a part of this brand platform. That to me will be very rewarding and fulfilling as a founder. I do see us continuing to potentially expand our capabilities and some of the adjacencies that are obviously consistent with the move space, right? Whether it's storage, relocation, long distance, delivery, things of that nature, where we can utilize our capacity of trucks, labor, our brand platform, our client relationships. I do also think we're going to see a lot more national account opportunities, synergies with, other relocation organizations, other moving companies, to collaborate with, as well as, national brands that would have a need for moving and junk removal.
Cliff wants to buy a franchise. Where do I sign? Hey, you got to cut me in, okay? I'm over here selling franchises out here, man. I'm a head coach.
Yep. College H.U.N.K.S.com is where you can learn a little bit more.
There you go. Cliff, list me as a referral, buddy.
Absolutely.
You probably already got 20 locations in Atlanta, I bet. Cliff's good people there. Cliff, yeah, go check that out. Let me know. What about other countries? Are you guys anywhere besides the U.S. yet? We're
in Canada. We haven't made a big push there yet. It's our neighbors to the north. We've got some presence there. But we want to fill out the map first here in the U.S. I think we talked about the beginning, part of our secret sauce is our brand name. That's what helps us stand apart. So I'm not sure how that translates into other languages, because we lose the rhyming mechanism. We lose sort of the tongue-in-cheek aspect of it. And then I also, quite frankly, haven't researched what does the moving industry look like in other cultures, other countries. It's I would imagine, quite different at the local level. And so, I think before expanding into other countries, we'd probably more likely consider adjacent services to tie into our franchise model, to become more of a franchise platform, here domestically in the U.S.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, the biggest moving market in the world is here, in the U.S. So we have so much more mobility here in the U.S. It's just a bigger market. People, frankly, will pay for the service more. I know we think we have price pressure here, but I mean, it's exacerbated in other cultures. So
there is definitely price pressure here, though. This past couple of years with inflation, I mean, everything costs 20-30% more, whether it's insurance, marketing, truck payments, loan payments. And it's very hard in our industry, I think, to be able to pass that through. Everything else costs more, but for whatever reason, I don't think the moving industry has been able to fully pass through all of those inherent costs of doing business. And I think it's time that we, reflect inwardly to our industry as a whole and say, we need to charge what we're worth. This is a skilled labor we're providing. This is not unskilled labor. Moving is very technical, tactical. Every move job is different. Every piece of furniture, stairway, doorway, roadway is unique. And so to me, it's as technical as, the HVAC technician or, the electrician or the plumber that's coming in to fix things. It's certainly more physically grueling that we have to, our team members have to endure. And so I think we need to be able to charge what it's worth, and really the consumer needs to appreciate the value that professional moving organizations are able to provide.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think there's a real opportunity. I mean, moving's hard. The world's getting hotter. Americans are getting fatter. Okay, I'm just speaking for myself here. Okay, y'all, I live in Texas and I'm a big boy. Okay, I'm not moving myself. Okay, my not moving line. I think everybody's got a line in their life where they no longer move themselves after this period. Okay, some people say it's when you get married. Some people say it's when you get kids. Some people might say it's when you hit a certain notch on the belt. Some people say once you got a certain amount of money in your bank account. But there's a line in everybody's life where they say, listen, this ain't happening anymore. Okay, maybe it's when you go to the nursing home. Maybe you've been moving yourself till you're 75 years old, and then that's the one, right? But there's a line in everybody's life where once you cross that line, you are no longer moving yourself. Okay, I think that line's getting pushed up for a lot of people. That's all I'm saying.
I was doing the math. I've actually moved like 10 times in the past 15 years. It's kind of crazy. My wife and I are nuts. But every time we move, I'm so grateful to have our movers come in and do it for me. And I inevitably can't help myself. I have to start lifting some things and moving them. I'm the only guy that breaks stuff. So I'm dropping the lamp. I'm dinging the floor. I'm scratching the doorway. And I'm like, okay, there's a reason we hire professionals to do this. Yes. I'm not the professional. I wasn't even the professional when I was on the truck. I was getting,
Yes.
calls in the 800 number to stop swerving. So
Yep.
I'm better suited as a visionary entrepreneur, and we'll let the professionals do the professional work.
Amen. I hear that. Travis Washer, get in the comments here. Hit that like button. Throw some questions in there. Travis says, when I moved from Cincinnati to Jacksonville, I used College H.U.N.K.S because I had a furnished basement in Ohio that wasn't an option in Florida unless your sump pump running 24 hours a day.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Florida basements are certainly below sea level, so that groundwater will get in there.
Do y'all ever have to go down in some basements to get that junk out? Do you guys ever get into attics? I mean, that's kind of dicey,
Yeah, attic, crawl spaces, basements, garages. We do it all, both on the hauling side and on the moving side. And so, again, getting back to it being skilled labor and hard work, and companies need to be able to afford to pay the movers and haulers what they deserve, and need to be able to charge the client what the company needs to be able to earn in order to deliver that professionalized service.
I love the entrepreneurial journey, and I feel like we learn more from our mistakes than we learn from our successes, right? Successes, we raise a glass, we toast ourselves, pat ourselves on the back. But the mistakes are always the ones that stuck with me. I like to say I memorialize these mistakes in my mind palace so I can revisit them, especially in good times, and remind myself what an idiot I was at some point, or learn from them, right? They're just golden. Were there any mistakes along the way, or maybe something you would have done different, or that you could share with us?
I always say if you're learning, you're not losing. So every mistake, every experience is part of the process of getting better as a leader. Probably the most impactful mistakes that stand out to me, and you can appreciate this, Ben, being in the recruiting space, is maybe hiring the wrong people, or promoting certain individuals past the point of competency simply because they were a nice person and we felt like we wanted to give them. They thought they wanted more responsibility and we thought they should have it, when in reality perhaps they had hit their ceiling of capacity. And that one's really hard because look, you look at professional sports organizations, they've got all the game film on the players they're drafting and signing, all the statistics, and they can interview them. Whereas in business, and they still get it wrong, half the time, right?
Yeah.
Business, you're going off a resume, a reference check, an interview where the person is telling you they were really good at something, and you can't really validate if they're good or not. So you kind of have to use your gut and just, specific examples where they can tell you, and you can figure out if they were really the one that drove those results. And so it's hard when we make a mishire, because it sets you back months, or there's times, certainly I think the business leaders on the call can relate to this, where in your heart that it's time to move on from somebody, but you wait 3, 6, 12 months to make the move. And I heard it said that there's the most expensive time in a business executive's life is when he knows it's time to move on from a person in the organization, and the time they actually do it, because that delayed time is just, it's doing them a disservice, and it's doing the organization a disservice as well.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff, and we all deal with it because we don't want to be the bad guy. We don't want to, we want to give people opportunity. We want to, I believe I can help anybody be successful. I believe I can coach anybody to success. I see the best in people, and then sometimes they just don't got it,
Yeah.
and that is tough.
I think trying to be as objective as possible. We say warm on people, cold on numbers. So we try to have as objective of a scorecard as you possibly can for each role in the organization, and give people the tools, training, and support necessary for somebody to be able to hit those numbers. And if you're providing the tools, training, and resources, and they still can't hit them, you got to be compassionate about the situation, but help them find a better seat on your existing bus, or perhaps in a different bus, that's not your organization, because it's not fair to them. It's not fair to the other team members in the organization. If you're holding on to individuals that just can't make it work.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that was the thing that helped me get over it, was when I realized it wasn't about me and the person, and if I could bear their lack of performance. But when I started to realize the demotivating effect that it had on the rest of the team, and somewhat the disrespect that it showed to the rest of the team when they weren't pulling their weight, That's when I realized, okay, hold on, this is,
Yeah.
I can't tolerate it, anymore. And that is tough.
And that's really hard, right? In our industry, because on the front lines, you still need that warm body to be able to lift the other end of the couch, lift that box, drive that truck. And, not everybody's jumping and doing somersaults to try and get into this space because like we talked about, it's hard work and, pay doesn't always commensurate with that. And so, you sometimes, don't have a choice, but to have, some mediocre folks, but continuing to top grade and level up the quality, providing the training and tools to get, help people improve their capacity, reach higher levels of potential. But then again, know when it's time to move on, and also recognizing, the difference between will and skill. Is it somebody that's a really nice person, but just doesn't have the skill? And if you give them the opportunity to obtain the skill, you still got to move on if they can't cut it. But if somebody's, a really, negative individual, perhaps very talented, if you can't put a box around them or help them sort of change their ways, you got to also move them out, because that's also going to be a detriment to the culture as well.
That's another good one, right? I mean, sometimes we get stuck on these people because they're very talented, and this happens especially a lot in like salespeople, right?
Oh,
salesperson's knocking out a couple $1 million a year in revenue, and you're just like, oh, we couldn't possibly get rid of this person,
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's addition by subtraction. You let that person go, and all that revenue finds its ways into other parts of the business, or you backfill that person with somebody that does 2.5.
Right.
You're like, man, I should have done this a long time ago, So yeah, I love this. This is really good. Get in the comments here. We got time for maybe one more question. Let's see here. We got Christian. Christian says, can I get a few we love horror stories. Can we get a few horror stories, war stories from the field of what you found in those crawl spaces and attics?
Yeah. So probably the one that comes to mind was we were doing a junk haul back in the DC area when we first got started. And it was like a clean out of somebody had kind of moved out and left a bunch of stuff behind. So I think the landlord called us in to clean it out. And this is in the city of DC. And there was like a 12-foot boa constrictor or anaconda or something, python, just loose in the house, like not even in the cage, just loose in the house. And so needless to say, we had to call animal control. That wasn't something we were willing to haul away ourselves or move ourselves. That was probably the one that stands out the most. I mean, obviously, when you're across spaces and attics, you're going to run into rodents. You're going to run into, we've dealt with some hoarder situations. That's actually what brought us onto the Oprah show was they hired us to clean out a hoarder situation for one of their guests on the show. And I mean, there were rats bigger than the cats inside the house. And,
oh my gosh!
In those circumstances, again, we're not a pest control company. We had to bring in some hazmat companies and pest control to help deal with that and allow us to move the bulk and everything else. And so, we see all kinds. Anything from the nice reusable stuff that's getting donated to the Goodwills or to the Salvation Armies to the stuff that's a little bit scary, like I just mentioned.
Yeah. Super interesting. Hit that like button, get in the comments. I know we've all had our horror stories. Feel free to put yours in the comments. We love coming on here commiserating with one another, right? It's like all the crazy stuff we've come across.
Yeah, I will say, the other thing that's maybe somewhat of an existential threat to our industry in the moving space, we talked about it today. I had a board meeting, is the insurance piece, right? Insurance costs, are going up across the country. Some of it is stuff out of our control, like hurricanes and tornadoes and things that are just making everything more expensive because there's so many more claims. But it's also vehicle safety, workers' comp claims, and so forth. And so I think it can't be overstated how important and critical the safety component is in our industry, where you're putting people behind the wheel of these big vehicles, you're moving heavy furniture, you're loading them up in and out of vehicles and into homes. And like I said, every stairway is different, every hallway and turn is slightly different. And so we were talking about, how do we create, a safety briefing, like when you get on the airplane and that you go through your standard safety briefing before the plane takes off. We need that as well, in our space, because, quite frankly, it's an existential threat. Safety and claims and the cost of insurance is worrisome.
Hey, lift your seat backs, stow your tray tables, buckle up. We're moving people. Okay. Let's get safe out here. All right. We got one more question from Cliff, and we got Viba Van Bakel checking in from the Netherlands. Can't wait to have Viba on the show. Probably Monday coming up, maybe next. Viva says we need to show much better globally what we really do as movers. We have a great profession, but most people have to experience our industry as they do not know what we do. It's so true, Viva, because until you've sat there and watched the mover really go through and lift everything and pack your whole home and do it with such ease, compared to, gosh, it'll take me 2 days to pack a room. And these guys will come in 2 hours and pack that thing and just eat the whole house and put it all in cardboard, right? And it's gone in a day. And it takes me weeks to do what they can do in a day.
Yeah, I think I agree 100%. I think if there's one thing that we could do as a collective industry as a whole, it would be to change the narrative about movers as being unprofessional and unskilled, and elevate the expectation of why you want to hire a professional mover and the value that provides, from speed, peace of mind, stress relief. And there's got to be an enhanced, in my view, willingness to pay from the consumer side, so that their expectation isn't they're going to get the cheapest option that's out there, because then that puts pricing pressure on all of us, where it's harder for us to staff quality. It's harder for us to deliver quality to them. And we get in this part where we're getting margin compressed. So I do think there's an opportunity for us to elevate the perception of our industry and elevate the willingness to pay from the consumer. So I think that's number one. And then the other piece, I do think there's an opportunity for us to look into, insurance solutions that can benefit us all, because again, it's something that's going to erode margin as we look. There's only really two ways you can grow your profits in business. You can get, raise prices or lower costs. And as costs are going up, across the board with inflation, if we're having some trouble up at the top to push the prices up, then we've got to figure out how do we spread that margin back out, so our colleagues in the space can have a sustainable business long term.
Yeah, and you're so right, and I think we have a real opportunity with video, right? I mean, we go back to kind of how you've done such a phenomenal job with your brand. You take all these, you have these great publicity opportunities. But when I look at Instagram, when I look at TikTok, when I look at YouTube, and the way that we've innovated with short form video, and the way that we could show the whole moving experience in 90 seconds, from going into a home that's like cluttered and just lived in and everything, to packed, loaded, moved out, cleaned in one day, I think that can start to illustrate the value, because we talk about quality like everyone understands what it means and we all have the same interpretation of it. But I think it gets really muddied, and I think, and everybody's saying it, but I think we have the opportunity to really show with video. So I'm hopeful that there's opportunities for us to market ourselves different.
Yeah, agreed.
Travis says, college mates building crates, third-party crating services.
There we go. There we go.
Now you're moving in on Cliff's territory over here. Cliff says, do you handle discard and donate services?
We do. That's how we originally started, was on the hauling junk side, right? And so we've created partnerships with organizations like Goodwill, Habitat for Humanity, Salvation Army. And so the idea is for us to donate, recycle, repurpose the items we're hauling away first and foremost, and then obviously stuff that's not recyclable or donatable, it gets taken to the transfer facilities and in the markets that we work in. And so that is something that I think is a little bit unique about our positioning, is because we do moving and junk removal. Usually people don't realize the junk they have until they are moving. And so that, allows us to be a solution provider there as well, or also a synergy partner with other movers that maybe don't, have the infrastructure for the disposal or donation side of things.
Nick, this is a perfect entree into the corporate relocation space, because the discard and donate programs are getting written into relocation policies left and right as a sustainability initiative. And frankly, as a cost saving initiative as well, because of the fact that, if you donate it, you don't have to move it, and this is a really big hot thing right now. So we can talk more about that, but I think that's a real end for you guys.
Absolutely.
Viva says we can be more attractive. We tell our stories. Also, horror stories make it. Also, we are a conversation industry. Yeah, we make stories and memories. Time to tell stories, write books, and make movers movies.
I love it.
There was a movie about movers recently that came out. It was like a B movie. I went straight to video. I think.
The only one I'm familiar of was the Richard Pryor movie back in the 80s called Moving, which of course didn't paint the nicest picture of movers, but that's kind of the stereotypical image that people have when they think about movers, because there are mediocre companies out there, but that's just like any industry where there's a low barrier to entry. I think there's a low barrier to entry, but and maybe a high barrier to quality. And so if we can do, if we can do, the quality piece and then, tell the story, that's powerful.
Yeah, super awesome. Awesome. Hey, I know y'all have stayed tuned here till the end because we got these 2 segments. We got a top 5 business books recommendation from Nick Friedman, and we got an overrated, underrated coming at you. So we're going to go through this kind of lightning round here. Nick, you ready?
Ready.
All right. Top 5 business books. Adam, let's go. Number 5. That is a good one. Huh?
This is a good one. Effortless Entrepreneur by Nick Friedman and Omar Solomon. There's
I hear good things.
The bestseller right there. I was at a conference, and I know it's lightning round. Let's just tell a quick story how this came about. I was at a conference a little over 10 years ago, and the speaker said, anybody who's ever written a book says they wish they wrote it 10 years ago. So start writing it right now. And so we kind of went to the bar and we're like, well, I guess we got to write a book. And we're like, well, what are we going to write about? Well, let's write about what we've learned, in our 20s that we wish we knew in our teens, about starting a business. So at the time we were bachelors, we wrote it with a little bit of an edge, thinking we were going to be the next, Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week. It didn't quite work out that way, but I think I reread it recently. I would say 90% of it is still pretty relevant and timeless. I might change the tone on the other 10%, but I got to give a shameless plug at number 5 for my own book.
I love it. I love it. You know what? This is something I want to do. I want to write a book. It feels like everybody's got a book now. 10 years ago, it was probably less competition out there. But what do you think? Is it still worthwhile to write a book, or
absolutely?
Is it too
Not well. I think it's what is your goal with the book, and I think it can become a calling card. It can be a credibility piece. It can be a conversation piece, a client prospect gift. I think you've got a lot of stories to tell, Ben, with the folks you've interacted with and met with, and your journey in the relocation space. So I would encourage you to look into it now. With ghostwriting, artificial AI, self-publishing, things can be produced so much faster and brought to market and printed in a very professional manner than they were 10, 15 years ago. So I would still encourage it and just think of it. What is it that you'd be looking to achieve out of it?
Cliff's actually stealing my working title here, Mastering Mediocrity. Thank you, Cliff. I appreciate that. Really, really solid suggestion.
Love it.
Number 4.
Another oldie but goodie, The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. We actually convinced Michael Gerber to write the foreword for our book. Really simple, straightforward lesson in this book. Work on the business, not in the business. Create systems and processes for your business to scale. He talks about people don't fail, systems fail. So when we read that book, it felt like it was written about us because we were still on the truck moving the furniture ourselves. So that was really the next light bulb moment for us is, hey, if we're ever going to have another truck, let alone another location, we got to do exactly what this guy says.
Love it. Love it. Number 3.
So Gino Wickman, you guys may be familiar with, wrote the book Traction. It's part of a book series, and Rocket Fuel is one of those books in the series. And it talks about this as a founder, you ultimately elevate your role to become the visionary of the organization. And you need an integrator that's going to help take your vision and execute it across all of the functions. And so when we read that book, it was another light bulb moment for us is we've got to get out of this day-to-day operation and find somebody that can be more effective at taking our vision and holding the team accountable to execution.
I love it. I love it. Visionary integrator. That's key. I'm definitely a visionary as well. I know you identify as one. Looking for that integrator is really key. Number 2.
Another classic, Good to Great by Jim Collins. Getting the right people in the right seats, having the set of core values for your organization. The difference between a good company and a great company is that good companies might have core values. Great companies actually live them with how they, hire and reward and recognize. And so critical book right there. Yeah,
that's a real classic. I mean, it's interesting though, the companies that are studied in that book, how many of them are still around? I look at that and I'm like, I wonder, but it's a seminal work for sure. Number 1.
Another book from the Traction series, What the Heck is EOS? So like if you were thinking about just, familiarizing yourself with this framework of an entrepreneurial operating system, it's a short book. It's a quick read. It's an easy one. That would be my number 1 recommendation.
EOS is on fire right now. Everybody I talk to is in EOS, is going through EOS, went through EOS, is thinking about going through EOS, the entrepreneur operating system. is this something you've gone through with your company? You know,
Yes.
what is your experience?
Yeah, we sort of self-implemented it with some assistance outside facilitation, you know, probably over the past 10 plus years. We operate our business using their frameworks and tools, and we now train our franchise owners with some of those similar tools with how we coach them to run their respective businesses.
All right. Love it. Love it. All right, let's get into overrated, underrated. Real quick, I know we're at time, but we're going to do this because everybody loves this segment. Overrated, underrated. There's you know how to play this game, Nick?
Refresh my memory. I think it's pretty
seems
simple.
intuitive, but it's tricky. You got to watch out. Okay. There's basically two rules, two things you got to keep in mind. First, I'm going to give you a topic. You are going to tell me if it is either overrated or underrated. Don't get cute. Don't overthink it. Don't deviate. Okay.
You got it.
Number two, I'll tell you if you're right. Let's get into it.
And now, you want me to give any context or just overrated or underrated?
Yeah, context is welcome. Context
right.
is welcome within moderation.
Fair.
All right, let's go. Number one here, overrated, underrated, traditional advertising.
I think underrated today. I think.
Ooh, interesting.
I think it's
Give me an example of one piece of traditional advertising you think is underrated, underpriced.
I would say over-the-top television, OTT television, or TV ads are underrated because, yes, it's branding, you know, so it's a little bit further up the funnel. But like we talked about earlier, with things getting as congested down the funnel with Google leads and cost of Google advertising, if you're looking to build a brand, there is still some traditional advertising opportunities. It's much more fragmented than it ever was, and much more watered down than it ever was. So you got to, you know, do it the right way. You can't just shotgun at it.
Right.
But I think it's underrated because I think so many people have moved away from it that it lends itself to an opportunity to come back and maybe kind of contrarian approach, try to execute on it.
I love it. I love it. You know what I would say? Billboards.
Yes.
I love billboards.
Yep.
I love them. I don't know what they cost, so I can't tell you like ROI, if it's underpriced, overpriced, whatever. But I just think people aren't checking for billboards, and I look at them constantly.
Absolutely.
All right. You know what? 1 point for Nick. Underrated. Love it. All right. Next. Employee appreciation programs.
I mean, I think it gets the rating it deserves. So I wouldn't say underrated but I think you can't have enough. I think there's no such thing as enough appreciation or recognition. You know that.
Okay, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. Okay.
Yeah.
What if people get like so gassed up and they're like, "Oh, I'm so great. I'm so amazing. Oh, every time Nick comes in, he tells me what a great job I'm doing," and then like they kind of start feeling themselves a little bit. Maybe they start like, you know, I should be making more money. I should get a raise. I should go work somewhere else. I should, you know, I don't know. Can people get too gassed up, you know, with too much appreciation?
I think as long as you are tying the appreciation to the objectives of the organization, where it keeps interests aligned, then it can't be overrated because you're rewarding the behaviors, whether it's, you know, values or performance based, that matter to the results of the organization. If you're just appreciating for, you know, haphazard appreciation sake, or you're creating a Sesame Street. One of the quotes we always say is, you know, we need the right balance of Wall Street and Sesame Street. It can't be all Sesame Street where it's a daycare, you know, kumbaya scenario, and it can't be all Wall Street where, you know, we're so cutthroat that we don't care about the people. So it's got to be the right balance. And as long as you're not creating an environment of entitlement, which I think is what you alluded to, I think you can't go wrong with setting up appreciation programs.
You know, that's a really good point. Balance between Wall Street and Sesame Street. I never heard that before. I really like it. I will say one of the companies I worked at that had the longest tenure, the CEO was a jerk and never appreciated anybody. And somehow it created this culture of people were just gluttons for punishment. They just kept coming back. They kept hitting the head with a shovel. They just kept coming back, you know. And I'm like, why don't y'all go somewhere else? And they just were like addicted to like the abuse or something. It was weird. It's like Stockholm syndrome or something.
That's right.
You know? Yeah. Anyway, but no, I dig what you're saying. I think people need to feel appreciated. You know, I think people need to feel respected. I think people need to feel respected, like you're appreciating them for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Because if you give them appreciation for some nonsense, you know, I think people don't respect you for that sometimes.
That's right. Smart, valued, important, and trusted. I think those are, you know, those are key.
Very cool. All right. Very good. All All right. Yeah. All right. 2 points for Nick. All right. Next one. Short-term goals. Overrated or underrated?
Underrated. If you don't know where you're going, you won't get there.
Yeah. You know, what is that? What is that saying? People overestimate what they can do in a day, but they underestimate what they can do in a year. You know, I think yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, I guess the question is, how short term is short term? How
Right.
would you define short term?
I would say a short-term goal is quarterly. A quarterly goal is a short-term goal. A long-term goal is 3 to 5 years.
So in EOS, is that one of the frameworks where they look at like rocks,
That's
quarterly
right.
rocks?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. What are we
So
trying to achieve in this next 3 months that we're going to sprint towards? It's going to support our longer-term vision.
You know, I do think so. I think teams that do daily huddles. I mean, we do a daily huddle every day. I think it keeps us on point. Because if we do a daily huddle and our competitors are doing weeklies,
Yep.
like, hey, our iteration cycle is 5 times more than
That's
yours
right.
is. You know, sometimes we might accomplish in a quarter with rocks, what you guys might accomplish in a year.
Yep.
So I do dig that. Travis is hopping in there. Yes, we both worked at a company that was like that, with the appreciation or lack thereof. Man, there's some good tenure at that company. People worked there 23 years, getting beat over the head every day. You know, but I was thinking actually a different company, Travis, that we also worked at together. Me and Travis worked at too many companies together. Anyway, all right, 3 points for Nick. Let's go. Company values. We hear a lot about this. Overrated or underrated?
I'm going to go underrated again, but very cliche and very, in the mainstream talking points. Every speech is about, oh, you got to have core values. But I do believe that, and I'm speaking just from our own experience, if you cannot underemphasize the core values in your organization. We have a saying, it's not what's on the walls, it's what's in the halls. And so if you're living the core values, meaning you've got the people that embody, represent, identify with, and share those values, you're going to create a vibrant organization. So you got to be very intentional about what your values are and how they become lived. And I think reinforcing them through daily huddles, through appreciation or recognition opportunities, are ways that we've found that we can bring them to life. And that is what creates the culture. We say culture drives behavior, behavior drives results. And so if you're trying to drive results in the organization, you need these foundational values as your kind of guardrails to keep you on the road and make sure you're driving towards that destination.
You know, I like what you just did there too, because you linked two things, right? You said tie the appreciation to the core values, right? And so we're recognizing people for embodying those core values. I think that's very powerful. Yeah, I can't argue with that. 4 points for Nick. All right, last one.
I'm on fire.
Yo, don't blow it now. You're on the heater, Nick. All right, don't blow it. Overnight successes. Overrated, underrated?
Overnight success is overrated. There's no overnight success happens overnight. I can certainly attest to that. If you do have an overnight success, it's akin to winning the lottery. Like you don't become a #1 draft pick without putting in the work for the 5, 10, 20 years leading up to it. You don't become a successful business leader or business owner without the hard work and the heavy lifting that led to it. So I always say urgency of effort, patience for results. The media likes to glorify the unicorn billionaire companies, the overnight, billionaire valuations. And look, I mean, those are nice, but those are, few and far between. And the reality is, most successful businesses take a long time to manifest. Starbucks 25 years before they hit their tipping point, Apple 25 years before they hit their tipping point, us 15 plus years before we hit our tipping point. So I don't really believe in overnight success as a pursuit.
I love what you say there, and I'm sure because you're a younger guy, you're an entrepreneur, you're out there, but you're probably same age as I am. I'm 41. You're probably about my age, right? So I'm sure a lot of people come to you and they're like, oh wow, you guys are an overnight success, right? Because you're still young, and then just because they heard about it last night doesn't mean it's an overnight success, right? Just because they woke up one morning and found out about College H.U.N.K.S with 250 locations, y'all are everywhere. Overnight, they found out about it and they just started opening their eyes and actually noticing the green and orange trucks. Doesn't mean it just happened. Y'all been out there grinding for almost 20 years now, right?
Yeah. And that's why I call ourselves a 20-year overnight success, because that's really how long it's been and how long it's taken.
Yeah, that's a lot of nights. Well, I agree with this too. I think people have to have they have to have long-term thinking. I mean, you want to have that urgency, but you want to have that long view on things, and building brands, building culture. Those are very long-term thinking things, and y'all do those in spades. And Nick, it's just been a real pleasure and an honor to double click into your business and really understand what it's all about, because I admire you. I admire Omar, the team. I happen to know, I have known a lot of folks that have worked there over the years, because I was in Tampa for 6.5 years, coming from Pod's organization. And I have just the utmost respect for what you guys have built. Really a pleasure.
Well, I appreciate that, Ben. Thank you, and thanks to the listeners and everybody that's part of this industry. Thanks for what you're doing as well to help shed light on it.
Yeah, hit that like button, hit those virtual round of applause out there, get in the comments, let Nick know you appreciate him being here. Thanks everybody for watching. We wouldn't have a show without you guys, so stay tuned next week. Got a lot of cool guests coming up, and Nick, I will catch you on the flip side, man.
Yes, sir.